Imagine a grain of sand on your favorite beach, or a single drop of rain in the recent Texas floods. Small, right? That's how studying big history makes me feel. A tiny piece of something so grand. A small part of something so amazing in its complexity and awe. Big history is based on big ideas and is a new way to teach history created by David Christian and made accessible to as many people as possible by Bill Gates. Big history does not confine itself to a single academic discipline or even a single topic. Instead, it puts forward a blend of history, biology, chemistry, and astrology. The concept of big history was introduced by David Christian in a 2011 TED Talk in Long Beach, California. His talk has 5.2 million views, securing its place on the list of top watched talks. I encourage you to check it out if you want to learn more. Although big history was the brainchild of David Christian, it was when Bill Gates got involved that things really started rolling. After watching many DVDs based on Christian's work, Bill Gates was inspired and motivated to make the curriculum of big history accessible to as many high schoolers as possible. A powerful partnership was created, and an online high school curriculum was born. Big history is unique because it does not use a textbook. Instead, we embrace the idea of collective learning, using only online resources which are updated and reviewed by students and teachers alike. So the curriculum of big history starts at the Big Bang and brings us up to the current day. That's a lot of ground to cover, and it's done by breaking down the 13.7 billion years since the Big Bang into thresholds. Thresholds are defined by an increase in complexity paired with Goldilocks conditions. Now, we've all heard of Goldilocks. She likes things not too hot, not too cold, but just right. Thresholds in big history are just as finicky. An example of a threshold is the development of agriculture. Agriculture allowed human population to increase at warp speed because of food surpluses and an excess of collective learning. Big history surveys the whole history of time. Imagine this: darkness, nothingness, a complete lack of space and time, and then the Big Bang. Out of nothing, the universe is created. At first, it's a blur, but then things start to appear. Stars are created, those stars die, creating chemicals which form planets, and those planets form solar systems. I think you get the idea. It's hard to argue that the Big Bang is not pretty impressive, and it's the first threshold on the big history timeline. But the thresholds that follow the Big Bang are equally as impressive as the first. Staggering complexity and new Goldilocks conditions combine to form completely new thresholds that seemingly appear out of nowhere. The thresholds that appear after the Big Bang are the stars lighting up, new chemical elements, Earth and solar system, life on Earth, collective learning, agriculture, and the modern revolution. And there are more to come. Each of these thresholds could be discussed for hours, days, months, years, decades, and centuries. So believe me when I say a lot happened in the last 13.7 billion years. Although David Christian was the one with the original idea for big history, it was when Bill Gates got involved that things really started going. Using his financial support and leveraging his influence, big history became noticed. Why is big history taught at Greenhills, where I attend school? Because Greenhills is an independent school, it's much easier for new innovative curriculums to be involved in the course selection. That's why big history was offered at Greenhills as only one of 6 schools at the very beginning of the big history program. Big history came to Greenhills because of my teacher, Dr. Schreiner, and her exposure to David Christian and the rest of the big history team during her PhD program. Dr. Schreiner brought big history to Greenhills, and Greenhills embraced it. While big history is not a required class, it is offered to every student sophomore year and above. History has always been my favorite subject at school, so when I was presented with the opportunity to learn big history, I jumped at it, even though I wasn't entirely sure what it was all about. Bigger is better, right? Well, I wasn't disappointed. As big historians, everything is put into context for us. We think big, and we learn big. We only pay attention to the major events and major transitions, or thresholds. Whereas your average history class will memorize the birth and death dates of Isaac Newton and Napoleon, whereas big historians memorize the life cycles of stars. What I wasn't expecting in learning big history as a 15-year-old is that it sets up some inherent conflicts. I've spent the whole last year learning how I fit into the context of almost 14 billion years of history. This conflict that I am calling Big Me versus Big History is food for thought. Thanks to social media, selfies, oversharing, and growing up in a community where it feels like not only everyone is above average, but way above average, makes finding our spots in the context of big history challenging. How would a teenager feel, such as myself, if someone told them that their ACT scores, win-loss records, and grades were not the most important thing? Early on in history, people believed in the geocentric model, where the Earth was the center of the entire universe. As time went on, Copernicus and others began to believe in the heliocentric model, where the sun was the center of the universe. I'm afraid that in this day, we are living in a Meocentric universe, where each individual believes that they are the center of the universe and everything revolves around them. The Big History versus Big Me throwdown is illustrated by a Gallup survey conducted in 1950, asking high school students a very simple question: are you a very important person? In 1950, 12% of these people answered yes. 12% of the high schoolers believed that they were very important people. The same exact survey was conducted again in 2012. However, the results were profoundly different. The high schoolers that were asked in 2012, out of all of them, 80% of those high schoolers answered yes. 80% of those high schoolers believed that they were very important people. Now, all of my peers in this room are products of this cultural shift, the generation of Big Me. When I was going home one day in winter, I realized that I had been living in my house for almost forever, realizing that through the lens of big history, my forever was only the tiniest blip on big history's forever. Now, this led me to realize that everything that I believe and take for granted to be a part of my world and the generations to come is not true. Being a student of big history and taking the curriculum out of context and thinking about it more often than not can make getting up in the morning very hard and putting in extra hours studying chemistry seem like it's not worth it. What is a kid to do? My love of history and my passion for big history has left me feeling like there's no possible way I can impact myself, my family, my friends, my community, or my world. That's why it's so important to think of big history bi-directionally. We've not only used the events that happened in the past 13.7 billion years to provide us context for the present, but we're also using it as a foundation for our future. Through big history, I have learned that because we humans can share our thoughts and communicate with each other, we are one of the only species that experiences collective learning. Before humans, thoughts and ideas died with a species. Now, humans and we have created a whole history based on only that collective knowledge. Only 700 years ago, people began to connect the world through shipping and trading. Now, using the internet, we have a singular international brain. This is a powerful force, and I, for one, am not sure that we humans are still in the driver's seat. Our lifestyles that require overconsumption of energy create a challenge for our environment and threaten the Goldilocks conditions that created us. But studying big history can help us figure out what to do with these challenges in the future. The coolest thing about big history is that anyone can be a student. No matter how old you are, where you go to school, you can become a part of the big history community. I encourage you to check out the Big History website, explore, and most importantly, learn. Thanks, and see you in the next threshold.